Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, May the 15th, 2023. Today I want to look at the horoscope of Joe Biden, and in doing this I want to be objective. As you may know, I am not a fan of Joe Biden. I think he's one of the worst presidents that have ever been, but nonetheless, one has to look at it from all sides. Maybe there are going to be times in his presidency when things are fine. There are going to be times when there are going to be opportunities. And one aspect of his chart that I want to focus on is his moon. Now, Joe Biden is a Scorpio. I think he was born on November the 20th, 1942. So that certainly makes him a Scorpio, right on the cusp kind of, but definitely Sun in Scorpio. But then there's his moon sign. In astrology, the moon sign can be just as important as the sun sign. And Joe Biden has his moon in Taurus. Now, Taurus has got a reputation for being a very sensual sign. It's all about touching and the body and that kind of thing. So it's perhaps appropriate to look at an article in the Los Angeles Times titled "Joe Biden criticized for his treatment of women, promises to be mindful of personal space." Now, I'm not bringing this article up because I'm specifically trying to be critical of Joe Biden. I'm bringing it up so that we can perhaps better understand astrology, better understand his moon in Taurus. So there is a picture of someone called Lucy Flores, and it says, then Vice President Joe Biden with Lucy Flores at a Las Vegas rally on November the 1st, 2014. Flores says some of Biden's behavior made her uncomfortable. Okay, so what is this about? So let's start reading. This is a 2019 article, April the 3rd, so this was before he became president. Former Vice President Joe Biden, facing a crisis that could hobble his 2020 presidential campaign even before it is launched, stepped up damage control efforts and for the first time personally responded to complaints from women who say they were uncomfortable with his tendency to touch and hug people he meets in politics. Yes, I know he's been criticized for this, but actually it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, from his chart? He's got the moon in Taurus. The moon is how we respond to the world very often. It's about how we are emotionally, and if you've got moon in Taurus, the sensual side of things is often going to be very important. So if we turn to his chart, here we go. So we can see that he certainly has the moon in Taurus. That's his lunar return. There we go. There is his moon at 0 degrees 59 Taurus. Now, I do think this explains why touching, hugging, all that kind of stuff is important to Joe Biden, and I'm neutral on that. It's not good or bad. Obviously, one's got to be aware of other people's limits and boundaries. The moon in Taurus is also, it's a very good place for the moon. The moon is exalted in Taurus, and in fact its degree of maximum exaltation is 3 Taurus. Now, in politics, the moon can often be about the people, relating to the people. And if you're a politician, having a good moon can be useful. And whatever you think of Joe Biden, there's absolutely no doubt that he is a very successful politician. He was senator at a very young age, being vice president and now president. And I think that moon has been a big help. Now, interestingly, on March the 25th, 1976, according to a story in AP, Joe Biden endorsed Jimmy Carter as Democrat nominee for the presidential candidate. And of course, Jimmy Carter went on to win later in the year. And on March 26, Jupiter went into Taurus. So he did this just as Jupiter was going into Taurus. And as we know, on Tuesday, Jupiter is going into Taurus. And so I think that for Joe Biden, endorsing Jimmy Carter, being the first senator, I believe, to endorse Jimmy Carter, must have been very good for his political career. And that moon in Taurus perhaps gave him a feel for what people wanted. But annoyingly, on March 25th, Jupiter was not quite in Taurus. Jupiter went into Taurus on the 26th. So if it had only happened a day later, his endorsement, it would have been so much better. But we now have Jupiter going into Taurus again on Tuesday. And so Biden, over the next few weeks, is going to have Jupiter conjunct his moon. And like it or not, this is good. This is a time when Joe Biden can perhaps put his presidency back on the rails. With Jupiter, you have to take advantage of the opportunity. He needs to reconnect with the American people, and I think perhaps he can do this if he does it right. Will he do it right? I don't know. It's a complicated situation. Now, to give you an idea about the situation and perhaps how complicated it is, let's just do a bi-wheel, which is Joe Biden's chart in the middle. The planets for today in the outer ring. So there's Biden's moon, and there we can see Jupiter about to make the conjunction to the moon. And, that's good. But there's other stuff going on. He's got Pluto square his moon. And in a few days' time, he's going to have Mars square his moon. So at the end of this week, there's going to be, in the jargon, a T-square in the sky. You're going to have a Mars-Pluto opposition, and you're going to have Jupiter on the T. And this means that Joe Biden is going to be under, I believe, great pressure. He could be doing things. He could be saying things. Emotionally, he's going to be quite all over the place. Now, that could be a good thing if he can channel his emotions in the right way. On the other hand, there is a point where he could go too far. So it would be nice if someone could advise him. I mean, if you're of a democratic perspective, if you could find a nice Democrat astrologer to help him through the next week or two, that would be a good thing. There's also his lunar return. Now, the lunar return is the point where the moon returns to where it was when one was born. And this happens every month. So here's the lunar return, Joe Biden's lunar return for a few days' time. This is on May the 17th, which is going to be Wednesday. And there you see, there's a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in his lunar return. Now, if you see a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in a lunar return, this tends to be really fortunate, all things being equal. It's towards the top of the chart in the 10th house. So, yeah, this is a major chance for him. I mean, it is complicated, this lunar return, by the fact that Mars is rising, Pluto is on the descendant, and the moon is up here. So, yeah, this lunar return is dramatic. And I'm just wondering what's going to be happening this week with Joe Biden. I mean, logically, Jupiter is a fortunate planet. I mean, when it makes a conjunction to the moon, you'd think that's really good. But Jupiter can sometimes surprise us. Jupiter releases what is already there. So if you've got a tendency and it's brewing, Jupiter comes along and it's all out in the open, and it happens. So it could be about exaggeration. So as the week progresses, it's a good idea to look at what Joe Biden is up to. Look at his public performances. Look at what he's saying. Look at how he is saying. And remember, Joe Biden's chart, in many respects, is the chart of the United States. Now, that might seem a controversial thing to say, but from a symbolic point of view, America has chosen Biden as its head of state. And so for those 4 years, maybe even 8 years, where Joe Biden is president, his chart is intrinsically linked to the destiny of the United States. Anyway, enough of Joe Biden. I will now look at today's stars. Not a massive amount going on. Notice that the moon is in Aries now, so it's a time when we can be very dynamic. If we want things to happen, we can make them happen. And further, the moon is making a sextile to Pluto. So moon sextile Pluto is about using the force of our emotions to get results. So if you want something to happen, use your feelings and channel them with laser beam precision. But by the same token, watch out for other people. They might be doing the same thing. Other people could be very persuasive today. Now, that's today's broad picture. So let's look at my forecast for each of the 12 signs. Aries, you're feeling good about yourself and your emotions are powerful. Taurus, your strength isn't obvious, but incrementally you are getting more powerful. Gemini, after a few weeks of delay, things are returning to normal. Friends matter. Cancer, you've got some powerful ideas, and at work or in business, it's time to impress. Leo, change comes in unexpected ways, and your own value system needs to be tweaked. Virgo, you know something isn't right, and that action is now required. Libra, the focus is on the other, and it's time when you need to listen rather than talk. Scorpio, someone is ready to make a decision. Do what is right, not what is spectacular. Sagittarius, you're in a playful mood, but don't make assumptions about the impact you're having. Capricorn, your own four walls don't just protect you, they also nurture your talents. Aquarius, you know what message you want to communicate. Don't hold back. Pisces, things are simpler than they have been for a long time, and in terms of money, it is as it is. Now, one thing I have forgotten to mention is the fact that today Mercury goes direct. Now, from the Earth's point of view, for the last 3 weeks, Mercury has been going retrograde. I mean, this is because, as astrologers, we tend to put the Earth at the centre of the universe. Of course, it's not at the centre of the universe, and in terms of the solar system, it's the Sun that's in the centre. And from the Sun's perspective, Mercury never goes backwards. It just keeps going round and round. I think it has a cycle of about 88 days. But from the Earth's perspective, Mercury will go retrograde for 3 weeks, approximately. And for the last 3 weeks, Mercury has been going backwards. And so that has meant that many of our plans have perhaps had to be delayed, perhaps messages have been misinterpreted, and organisation hasn't been quite as good as we'd hoped it would have been. And many astrologers suggest that we don't actually do anything particularly important while Mercury is retrograde. You know, if we've got some important letter to send, email, whatever, ideally we should wait until Mercury goes direct. Anyway, today Mercury is direct and we can start to put our plans into action. So just bear that in mind. You know, Mercury does go retrograde quite often, and maybe it doesn't matter, but it's just one other thing to consider. As far as my I Ching reading is concerned, the first hexagram I got was 42, which is increase. So that sounds good. I mean, things are moving our way. What we have is increasing. Perhaps we're making more money or something like that, or we have a chance to make more money. But it is a bit of a zero-sum situation, and that's indicated by the third line of this hexagram, which moves. And when the third line moves, it means that we increase because of something bad happening. We benefit from some misfortune. Maybe it's someone else's misfortune. One person's loss is another person's gain. Now, we needn't feel guilty about this. It's not like we're responsible for the situation. It's just the way it is. We just happen to be in a position where we can benefit from some evil situation outside of us. So, when we get the gain, if we feel guilty about it, I don't know, we can perhaps give some money to charity or whatever. And 42 moves to hexagram number 37. So by the end of the day, when we've made our gains, when we've settled accounts, we can start to focus on our immediate environment and in particular on our family. So as the afternoon moves to evening, get in touch with your family, talk to your family, relate to your family, because there's plenty of scope for finding real comfort. That's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.